Gus, what are all these books behind your head, man?
This is my knowledge base right here. Check this out. Check this out. We got that interview pending, man. We got to add one more to the
Wow.
wall.
Okay,
But
let's
I'm
do it.
I'm waiting for that interview. I'm waiting for that book interview. The definitive deep dive into real estate prospect.
I love
And
it.
we can graduate it into the I already know which one I'm going to replace. I already got this guy over here. Right there. This guy.
All
So
right. I like it. I
gotta
like
put
it.
yours up there. Gotta put yours up there.
Everyone, welcome back. We've got my friend Gus. He runs Power ISA, and we've got Joe because we're going to be talking about three ways that ISAs can help you prospect for sellers. Obviously, everyone's panicking right now, but I don't know why, man. I don't know why people are panicking. It's like, what's
It
going
it is a it is a it's a crazy market. And Tristan, you're the information you put out on a daily basis. It's very helpful to put things into context, right? Either historical context or laying out the data, because there's a lot of information out there that is devoid of evidence, devoid of data, like
on?
passion free of reason, right? So I mean, it's always useful. I find it useful to take a look at things because right now, as a country across the whole US, we're still in an inventory crunch, right? I mean, I don't care what people say. We're barely at the halfway point of where we were pre-pandemic. We're barely at that point, 50%, 50% plus of where we were only 4 years ago, right? Which I think is, and we were already in a seller's market back then, 100%. Of course, the interest rate situation has been nuts this year. There's a lot of factors, a lot of noise out there. And of course, we couldn't go without saying, there's a certain verdict came down a few days ago that it's sending shockwaves through the industry. There's a lot of reasons to be focusing on sellers right now. I just mentioned a few. Not enough homes for sale. Historically short in inventory. Like I don't care what you're saying. That's still slow.
Yep.
And there's a lot of incentive to really double down and list to last, right? There's a lot of reasons people are doing this. So we want to help people. You're here today. People are here today because they want to find out, okay, great. I get it, Gus. I'm bought in. I want to focus on sellers. How can an ISA help me achieve that, right? You guys came to the right place. But I want to start with these two really important factors, Tristan. These two things can derail any effort you make. They can throw you off if you don't address them. I'm not going to start with the first three tips. I'm going to start with these first two mini tips. But if you do not address them, you're going to fail. Okay, you're going to fail with these tips for these ISAs. Number one, and this is the biggest difference with doing calling now versus when I started Power ISA 8 years ago in 2015, and that is this term we love to call spam likely. Okay, spam likely. That is, bar none, the biggest issue you have to tackle. And here's the funny thing. It's not just cold calling. I wish it were only a cold calling issue. I have seen inbound Facebook, Google, Zillow campaigns. ISAs make 200 calls and talk to two people in one day. Okay. 200 dials to 200 different leads, and they spoke to two people in a single day. That is a spam likely issue. There's a whole, you can go take the deep dive on this. It's a protocol, stir, shaken, and there's the platforms and there's the carriers that are trying to limit. I blame the robocalls, Tristan. I don't know they really forced their hand and they had to take action to really limit these ridiculous amount of robocalls. And now there's SMS and texting regulation coming down. It's a different world. The point I want to make though is that your ISA, or even yourself, if you're making these calls right now, on a daily basis, you've got to verify if your number's coming up as spam likely. If you're not doing that, you're wasting your time. Okay. None of what I'm going to tell you today is going to work if you're not taking care of this. How do you do that? Two simple steps. Call someone with an iPhone, call someone with an Android, and ask them, does your phone show up as that? Because not just the carriers, the operating systems will tag you. They have the ability to do that, right? They'll show it to you, and it'll show up differently on an iPhone versus an Android. Step number two, call someone on Verizon and someone on T-Mobile or AT&T, whatever it is, right? Call someone on one carrier and call someone on another. We have implemented this. A lot of our clients, and it is a game changer, right? I'll show some examples where we're talking about this, but this is step number one. Whoever's doing the calling, by the way, I don't care if it's you or your ISA or whoever, buyer's agent, whatever. if your number is coming up as spam, you're not going to get the 5 to 10% contact rate for cold calling. You're not going to get the 20, 30% contact rate for inbound leads. You're never going to get anywhere close if your number comes up as spam likely. Okay. And if your number does come up as spam likely, you got to try a different number. Okay. Or you've got to use the tools at our disposal with Mojo, with Vulcan, with RedX, LCA partner, RedX. They've got white label technology. They've got mobile calling technology. They're here to help us, right? So leverage that technology, but check it every single day. Verify it with your own eyes. Is this working or not? Biggest factor that's going to move you forward or going to hold you back, regardless of what kind of calling you're doing. It doesn't matter anymore, actually.
Gus,
right?
could you just pick up a new phone and do it? Like, could you get a new phone line?
You can, but if you're doing outbound prospecting, it'll be tagged as spam in 24 hours, 48 hours. Doesn't matter. Brand new line. What I recommend is using a tool like a Ring Central, like a Vonage, right? Using that tool to make sure you can actually change phone numbers very efficiently, very quickly.
Actually, hold on, because I just had a call with Curtis at RedX. He runs RedX. He told me there's something they released 2 weeks ago called the Smart Number.
Yes,
so
there we go.
They'll make sure that that number is never appearing as a spam number ever.
That's awesome. I haven't tested it out, but I mean, no, Curtis is a great guy, and they're one of, I mean, the companies that their incentive is to help us make some calls in a compliant way that works, right? And and I think it's the number one problem that they're facing. I know it because I live it every single day. This is the number one
yes,
thing, right?
It's your business.
Find a way to reach out and actually connect with people. Cold calling, 5 to 10% contact rate. Inbound leads should be twice that. 20% contact rate. If you're nowhere near that, if you're in the single digits below 5%, I know exactly I don't have to look at it. I know exactly what the issue is.
Wow.
You're coming up as spam likely. And the only people you're talking to are those brave souls that are curious. Oh, I wonder who the spammer is. That's the only people you're talking to that day.
It's not me.
It's not a good outcome. It's not a good outcome, man. It's already hard enough to reach out to people. Don't make it even harder by not checking. That's number one. The second thing I want to say before we get started is follow up. Folks, when your ISA is generating leads, they're generating appointments, generating live transfers, it's not one and done, guys. And you got to remove yourself from that mindset if you have that expectation. My ISA is going to be handing me a bunch of listing appointments and I'm going to go get it signed. I don't know any lead source that does that. I don't know any amazing magical ISA. And today we're going to talk, at the end of this call, I got a treat for you guys. We're going to talk to an actual ISA making calls right now, getting listings right now in this market. And we're going to hear from the horse's mouth. Even he doesn't do that. I'm going to show you the right way to do it, but it is a follow-up game. Your ISA's job is to get you in touch with a qualified seller lead, okay? Confirmed homeowner, confirmed contact information, and motivation to sell, or at least curiosity about buying and selling, right? Because a lot of these sellers are buyers first, okay? They're buyers first and foremost. What is it that they want, right? Because selling a home, no one wakes up wanting to sell a home. People want to wake up and get something bigger, something smaller, go change school districts, relocate, get closer to family, get farther away from family. That is what they actually want. The selling is the byproduct of that, right? So you got to understand, build that relationship. Your ISA's job is to get you as many qualified sellers in the pipeline as possible every single day. And I think that's a big shift. Let's jump into it though. That's the preamble. That's a pre-talk, right? If you don't understand those two things, it doesn't matter what I say next, right? Those things are the prerequisites, okay? Prereqs, the prereqs to make these things work. Let's jump right into it. 3 ways an ISA can make you successful and get you more sellers ASAP. Number 1, okay? And this might surprise people, Tristan. This might be a little bit of a curveball. It's like because we're not going to be talking. Number 1 is actually not going to be expired FSBO cold calling. It's not actually, okay? The number 1 lead source we hit when we start a campaign, and almost all, even cold calling campaigns, is the agent's own database, okay? And I'm talking about unmet leads. We even have clients that have us call their personal database. Why? Because they're not doing it, okay? So, that is your personal database. It is unmet leads. It is your old internet leads. And we'll be talking about specific examples, but this is unbelievably powerful because a lot of times you've already paid for these leads, folks. They're sitting in your database waiting for someone to reach out. And people, then you might not believe that this is actually true, but I'm here to tell you this absolutely works because the folks are there and they might have registered on your website 6 months ago, a year ago. Well, guess what happened over the last year? They probably moved forward a little bit further down in the funnel than they were 6 months ago, a little bit further down the funnel than they were a year ago. And bad news might be, oh, guess what? I already bought a home. I already sold my home. Sorry, my bad. I mean, that might happen. That might happen. Just being honest with you guys. But there's opportunities there. And you might think that database is old and, not worth calling. And there might be people that are just further down in the funnel. And if you get them through Zillow, they're going to cost you, upper tier is what, 40% now through Zillow? But you've already paid for them a year ago. You already paid for those leads. They're already in your database, right? And we should have another whole other session on the whole nurturing process to keep them active, right? But that's, there's a great book about that. They probably should check out. The kind of outlines that in a lot of detail. But I'm here to tell you, at the very least, you should call through it, do what we call a rekindling campaign on those old leads. Start there. Start there. They tend to be the lowest hanging fruit, highest converting kind of lead source, especially when you compare it to cold calling. Start there. There is a lot of opportunity in those leads. You're just waiting to make it happen. I love this example. A good friend of mine, client Rodolfo out of Seattle, had a personal database, an old leads database that numbered in the thousands. It was tens of thousands. Okay. How many times he had called through it? Basically 0 times. Okay. He would wait for them to come to him. It was a large enough database where he kind of would just wait for that. He hired an ISA full time to call through his massive database of personal leads and old internet leads. 55 appointments in the first 60 days. Okay. Because that's what happens when you've never called, right? Some of these lead sources.
Yeah.
You get these outsized returns because you never actually picked up the phone and did it. I don't recommend never picking up the phone and doing it, because it should have been 100 appointments. Should have been, 200 appointments, right? For a database that size in the first 60 days. But he was able to do it because he actually took action, okay? He was not making the call himself. He had the data. Leads were already sitting there. Make the call and start the conversation with these folks. Do it 100%. Another great example. And I love this one, okay? Luke Salela, okay? Big Facebook, a campaign, a manager loves Facebook, does it through Facebook. Generated leads. And he actually, I know about this because he actually called me and wanted a one-on-one session to help him because he had a Facebook campaign, generated about 100 leads, okay? And Luke knows his numbers. Luke is a beast. He's hey, and he has an ISA team. He has 3 ISAs working for him. So he knows, he's a guy who knows his numbers, okay? And he said, Gus, running this campaign should be a high converting campaign. Generated over 100 leads. I only got 10 appointments. I'm missing 6 appointments. What happened? Right? What happened? What's going on? I'm okay, well, let's see. Let's check it out. They talked to about 30 people in that campaign. You don't always talk to everybody the first 30 days. Talk to 30 people. They booked 10 appointments, and there were 20 people they talked to they couldn't convert. You know what ended up getting him his 6 appointments within a week?
What?
Calling them again.
A second time.
The 20 people that had said no, that were too busy, that as long as they, and again, for the FCC listening in, you got to be compliant. If they ask you to remove them from the list, you got to remove them. You can't call them anymore. But if they don't say the magic words, can you please remove me from your list, right? If they don't say the magic words, or they hit stop on the texting, you know what I mean? Be compliant. But he was able to call 20 people back 30 days later, different phone number, different ISA. And they got the 6 appointments they were missing. Actually, they got more than that, but they met their goal with the same leads, with the exact same leads. They got them at a better time.
So you're saying our magic is inside of our database. We just have to have somebody like Joe call them, and then we have to actually follow up once.
100%. Because the best the ISA can do,
that's just too much work for me.
I know, right? I know it's crazy. I know it's simple, but not easy. But if what you need is more people to talk to, the ISA's job is to make the 200 calls so you can talk to that one person. Look at it that way, Tristan. Look at it that way. All right, saving you 100 calls.
Why do we have Joe here? What's he gonna do for us?
So Joe's gonna be jumping in. I want Joe to be like the telling it how it is from the trenches, like what is actually working 100%, right?
So
And,
Joe, Joe works with you at Power ISA. He's an ISA.
he's an ISA. He's an ISA working for an agent. He's an ISA working for an agent, and he was kind enough, curious enough to jump in and kind of provide like the on the ground info. But I want to get through a couple more the tips. I want to coming in at the end kind of comment on everything. But let me jump into the next one. The next way that an ISA can be killing it for you right now. But I want to add a big caveat to this one, right? And this one is the one you would expect. This is expired. This is FSBO, okay? Expireds and FSBOs, tried and true. They are the highest, there still are the highest converting outbound prospecting lead source. And it's not close, not particularly close, okay? It is the highest converting outbound prospecting lead source. The only thing better than calling it to get now business is probably your personal database is number one. Next one, expired at FSBO. I mean, because they are hand raisers, because they've identified as a motivated seller, right? That for a lot of reasons, there's a reason that they are a high converting lead source. But I'm going to reiterate this, okay? When we see campaigns that are killing it with expired and FSBO, and I want to make a super big emphasis here, the ISA is not setting appointments with expireds and FSBOs. They're not sending appointments. And there's a great testimonial we got right now in October from Manar Seba Real Estate Group out of Detroit. And I love it because they implemented this model to a T. The ISA's job, even when calling expired and FSBO, is not to set listing appointments, okay? Number one, those can be very unreliable. It takes a different approach, takes a lot more work to set that appointment. What the ISA should do, because these lead sources are so hot, they're so qualified, they convert so well that it has to be an agent conversation that gets them to the finish line, okay? I have not seen it work any other way, Tristan. I have not seen it work where they expect the ISA to hand off a bunch of listing appointments from expired and FSBO, and the agents, I've seen it, and the agents are very frustrated at the end. It's not what they expect. What they should do, like I mentioned earlier, they should qualify that lead. Are they willing to talk to my agent to see what they can do for them to get their home sold? Just curious. If you could make that happen, if you could sell that property, where'd you go to? Great. Tristan is the guy that can make that happen. When you want Tristan to reach out, I want him to introduce himself and show you what we do to get homes sold that didn't sell the first time, Mr. Seller. How does that sound? The commission and this, that, those are great questions for Tristan. When do you want him to reach out? I love you're asking that because we are competitive. You know, the market sets the rate. When do you want Tristan to go out there and answer those questions for you? Great. I'll have him call you. And then my preference, Tristan, is we'll have him call you tomorrow and introduce himself. Is that good? Great. Because they can be unreliable if you set like a specific time for the FSBO or the expired. But will you take, if he reaches out, will you take that call? Great, that's awesome. I'll have him call you tomorrow and introduce himself, right? And show you what sets us apart. Is that fair? Great.
Yeah.
That is it.
All right, so Gus, really quick, because it's a pertinent question. Blake, what's up, Blake? Ask, what if I hire an ISA to prospect and nurture? I want the best of both worlds. Gus, you guys do that for us. I mean, you
100%.
have an ISA that already does that. So
100%. And and this is why, and we'll talk about to Joe about the 2 more minutes, Joe, because that's exactly what ends up happening. Because this is not I'm handing it off to the agent and we're done, right? No. If the agent's not able to get in touch with them within 3 to 4 tries, they go back to the ISA. Like cue them up again, right? Get them ready. Help me nurture these folks. When they've had a good conversation with the agent, but they truly are 6 months out. They might be a year out. That's great. Go back to the ISA and you can help them nurture them. The agent should be holding the 10, 15, 20 hottest opportunities at any given time. You should have a lead budget. That's the way I look at it. You should have a lead budget. Your time, and it shouldn't be more than 30 leads. Be realistic, right? No agent should be worth following up with and monitoring more than 30 leads at a time. And there's a bunch of research on this. You don't have the headspace for it. I hear teams try to do 100 leads at a time. No, come on. 20 to 30 leads that you're actively following up with, month to month, at least monthly follow-up with these folks. Everything else should go to your ISA. You absolutely can do that. You absolutely can do that. And we can go into more detail. But let's jump into the last one. Last one here. Last way. And this is the tried and true, good old Mr. Reliable circle prospecting, folks. Okay. So, but circle prospecting is always a trade-off, right? Circle prospecting is going to generate, if you follow my tips we're talking about today, can generate 1 qualified seller a day, can get 2 qualified sellers a day, right?
Really?
The
How many
trade-off?
Yeah, what's a okay, I'll let you talk. Go ahead. You piqued my interest. Go.
If you're talking to 30 to 50 people a day,
Who?
that is the bar. No,
Or
the ISA, the ISA.
Okay.
Or if it's an agent, it can be an even higher conversion rate, right? But agents don't do this. That's the problem. Circle prospecting takes more time. It takes more dials. It is probably the lowest converting lead source for outbound prospecting because it's calling the phone book, man. It's calling the phone book. Okay.
It's very random, but strategic at the same time.
100%. 1 out of every 12 adults in the US is going to be party to a real estate transaction this year. And this is not a great year for transactions. Let me tell you that, right? 1 out of every 12 adults in the US is party or related to someone that's party to a real estate transaction this year. That is circle prospecting. You're looking for those 1 out of 12, right? And to get them to open up. So maybe not all of them will open up. That's why I say you might have to talk to 4 of those people to get them to actually give you the time of day and pick up that phone. And when I say circle prospecting, it's an umbrella term. I mean, just sold, one of the highest converting ones of circle. I mean, downsizers, you can generate these lists. Red X, Remind, they generate this list for you. Call them. It's the same script because you don't want to call them saying, I hear you're old and you're finished and I want to sell your home to get you into
That's a great script, though. You'd make somebody laugh.
You probably could, but I don't recommend it. So you know that, but it's the same script, the circle prospect. I'm putting all those terms under the circle prospect. It is not today business. It is not immediate business, but you're building a pipeline. Most ISAs combine cold calling for expired and FSBO with circle. They combine calling internet leads with circle because you can do it every day, right? If you got extra time, you want to do it. So before we head out, I want to bring Joe. Joe here is here, Joe Cordero, experienced ISA. I want you to hear it, from the trench. Joe, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. You're currently, working in Florida area. What's been working for you? And I'm talking about the last 30 days, last 60 days. Let's make it real. Let's get specific. What have you seen working over the last 60 days to get you listings right now in this market, Joe? Go for it.
So you actually made some very important statements right there, Gus. And I did exactly what you just said, man. I'm as soon as I jumped on board with my agent, I looked at what was the highest valued things or highest valued leads that we can focus on, because I want to get some now business, not like 3 months or the beginning of the year business. So how I did this was
you got to do both. And
yeah.
You got to, but doing one without the other is hard, man. The pain's gonna come eventually. You do one without the other. You got to do both.
Yeah, and I mean, in order to get that now business, you just said it, man. Call the database, call the existing leads, call the pond, the sphere of influence, and that's exactly what I did. I started calling the database, which we actually have Follow-Up Boss set up, which is I'm not promoting Follow-Up Boss, but I love the database, because you could
fighting words.
tag.
Those are fighting words this week. I know.
you could tag. I could tag my agent. I could add other collaborators. I could set up tasks and stuff like that. But that's exactly what I did. I called the database. Going off the notes. Folks that we. It's crazy, man, how you said it. Folks that the agent only got in contact once, made one attempt, and didn't get any traction going, but that's exactly what I did. Just call the database, call the existing leads, and within 3 to 4 weeks we got a listing. We got a listing up straight from just calling the database.
3 to 4 weeks, but you started with so you assess the situation and go, this is the highest value lead source you got. Were they surprised by that, or they're like, oh, this is awesome? Or what did they say?
Yeah, they well, I guess he kind of didn't want to say, that I was the expert, but he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take your advice. He said, I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to go with what you said. So I was like, hey, let's go ahead and do it. Because
how big was that list? How many were in the database? Give people an idea. These are not 100,000 leads. I mean, how many were there?
These were 1,000 leads.
I mean, that's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that many. It's not that many. And there was now business hidden inside there you guys were able to get. Okay, that's awesome. But do you remember what the lead source was? What was it, like a Facebook, Google? What was it? The one
It
you
was
converted first?
Z buyer.
Are they another LTA partner or no? I forget, man.
Yeah, they
yes,
are.
they are. There you go. Was it a buyer or seller? Was it Z? You remember Z buyer?
Seller.
Who said those things? Don't work. But this is an eight. Do you know how old this lead was when they registered the first time, or no? You have an idea?
It wasn't that old. It was, a couple weeks. Not maybe like about 2 months. 2 months old.
2 months old. I mean, again, the database is there. You've already bought those leads. If you're not giving it, like I said, my other example from Luke, he called them again 30 days later. Called them again. People that had said no. People that had said no, tried it a second time, different number, different caller, and you're able to get a better result. Guys, the biggest thing with the shift, my response when people bring up issues with the shift, my response is more, right? The answer is always more. It takes more calls. It takes more conversations. It takes more appointments to stay where you are. Not forget growth. Growth takes even more than that. But the answer is always more. Okay. You were you were a lead receiver. Now you have to lead generate. It takes more calling your database, more conversations, more. The answer is more. And that's just it. Go
That
for
actually
it.
happened to me. As I was calling the database, I seen some leads on there that said not interested, but of course, these are old leads, and I didn't just let them just sit there. I was like, all right, a couple months have happened, have passed by. Let me ring him up, let me see what he says. And
Most
got an
agents
appointment.
throw them in the trash bin. Most agents ignore those leads. Oh, this is dead to me. You're in the pond. You're in the swamp. You're this person unqualified. They're no. It takes more effort now than it did a year ago, than it did 18 months ago. I love that, Joe. Another one. What else? What was that? What's the other listing you got recently? Give me another one.
Another one's hitting up expireds, expireds for sale by owners.
Brand new. How old? A week old? A month old? A year old? How old were those expireds?
It was a couple days, no less than a
Okay.
week. But I hit them up as soon as they come in, as soon as they pop up. As soon as they pop up, I'm giving them a call. But I tend to get a little bit more traction like early in the morning, because you want to be like the first person that calls them, because you're calling them later in the afternoon. I hear this a lot. You're the X amount number agent that's called me today, and I'm just like, wow. Well, are you ready to pick the right
100%.
one?
Yeah.
I gotta
100%.
have.
So it all works. The answer is, you got to be trying more things. The answer is more. The answer is more calls, more conversations. The answer to everything we're going to shift is that, folks. And that's what I want to end it. That's kind of the end of it. Go. Yeah,
right,
Tristan.
last question. Can we hire a part-time ISA? Is that an option?
100% yes. However, to work with Power, I mean, maybe you can hire it anywhere you want, but if you work with Power ISA, we'll take on a part-time campaign if you've got a lead source that you're going to get results with in a part-time campaign. For example, CLE Prospect on a part-time, you're wasting your money. Don't sign up. We won't take it, right? Like, you know what? You're just going to be frustrated. You're going to hate the life, and you're going to hate Gus, and you're going to hate Power ISA. We won't take those campaigns. If you have a lead source, or we can help you hook you up with a lead source that can convert with 4 hours a day of calling, oh, absolutely, 100%. You can do it through us. But it's got to make sense of what you're calling. You have to call a higher converting lead source than, say, CLE Prospecting. That's not going to work in a 4 hour a day program. Cool.
Yeah, I like it, dude. Joe,
love it.
Really good to meet you. Gus, can I just hire Joe through you guys?
Well, he's taken for the moment.
Oh, that's funny. Blake said the same thing.
For the right price, but we can get you someone like Joe, qualified, right, to make those calls. And Joe learned everything he knows from us, right? Just working with us and training with us and everything. So we can get you someone at that level. So there you go.
Now, look, Blake and I were the only ones who said it, but people were thinking it.
100%, 100%. The bids start, right after this call. The bids can come in.
Gus, I would like to do this, the next one, and I know we're a little over, but I'd like for you to maybe bring in Joe again, or maybe another person with Joe, and I'd love to go to scripting with them, kind of like
love it,
not a script battle, but a script battle. and I want to know, I want to see how they sound, like I want to see what Joe has to say objections wise. I think
Love it.
that would impress me, and I'd be like, well, damn, I feel like I can have you call my leads. Because I think
Love it.
the biggest factor is we don't know as agents what we don't know. We don't know that Joe can handle it. But obviously when he just scripted, I'm like, oh, Joe can handle it. I want to hire him.
100%.
So
100%. I love it. Let's do it.
all right, that's our next one.
I'm game.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you, man.
Awesome.
Bye, Gus.
Thanks, everybody.